Rebellious Studio presents the Mind Body Podcast with your host, Maria Angelova. Hi, Rebels. Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. And my guest today is Maxwell Bentley. Hello, Maxwell. How's it going?
Hey, Maria. It is wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I am so grateful to you for being here, and I'm so excited about our upcoming conversation. But Maxwell, before we get into all the cool things that you do, let us get to know you. Give us 3 words that tell us who Maxwell is, and give us a little bit of a backstory behind each.
So 3 words that describe me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, I remember you emailed me that, and I thought, oh, that's a good question, but I never actually answered it in my head before the interview.
Okay.
Maxwell is a storyteller. He is driven, and he's fulfilled. Those are 3 words that I would describe myself.
Yeah, give us a little bit of a backstory for each.
Sure. So I have been a lifelong storyteller ever since I was a kid, ever since cameras had videotapes and I was old enough to hold one. I have always been running around creating short films about whatever was going on around me when I was a kid. Sometimes it was my parents arguing, and other times it was fireworks on the 4th of July. And I had a reputation for just filming everything. And it was a phase that I never grew out of. And now I get to do it professionally for businesses, for nonprofits, for schools. I get to tell their story through the most powerful form of digital marketing that currently exists. And that's video and that's film. So that storytelling piece is an absolutely critical component of that. I am driven. I wake up every day, oftentimes without an alarm clock, because I am so gung-ho about what I'm doing. I'm so excited to get up and grow a company where my staff and my clients feel successful. And what was the last one? I forgot.
And fulfilled.
Fulfilled. Yes, I have no regrets. I know that I'm out here making mistakes. I know that I am reaping 10 years in business. I am starting to reap some of the actions, some of the mistakes that I had made 8, 9, 10 years ago. But I recognize that I am human and that I'm here to make mistakes. And I just want to get better at being uncomfortable. And so I don't feel like there's anything that there's missing. I just feel like I'm on this journey. I'm on this path, and I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. That sounds like the perfect description and intro for somebody who is on the Mind Body Rebellious podcast. Let's just say that.
I love it. I love it.
And as you're talking about capturing stories on film, I just saw the movie The Fabelmans. Did you see it?
No, I don't think so.
Oh gosh, and now I'm blanking, of course, of the directors. I know you know this director's name, but it's basically his grow-up story and how he caught everything on film. Steven Spielberg. And okay. I really enjoyed the movie. And as you were talking, it made me think about that movie. His way of capturing stories and seeing the world was through capturing them on camera and creating movies back in the day about them.
Yeah, and that's an interesting distinction, because I'm not necessarily a huge movie guy, although I do watch movies. I do enjoy movies. I do not really pay attention to actors and directors. And interestingly, I don't shoot my own documentaries. I am all about helping somebody else tell their story. And if they don't know what their story is, I'll come in and help them find it, which is very exciting to be able to take that story and translate it visually, find the right sound bites, the most compelling B-roll footage, the right music that all comes together to set the tone for how we want somebody to feel. How do we want their target audience to feel, and what do we want them to do? That's all comes down to how, really, beyond video, any piece of marketing, any website, any graphic, flyer, and when I say video, doesn't necessarily have to be a produced video. If you've got a camera, if you've got a phone in your pocket and a personality in your heart and some confidence in your mind, you can start shooting videos right now. But you need to know who your target audience is and what do you eventually want them to do and how do you want them to feel? Because that's all going to come through in how you present yourself and how you share your story as it pertains to your brand.
And you mentioned right there, I was going to say, let's go into the topic of branding, because I think that that's kind of like where my world and your world cross, because I think a big piece of branding, and you tell me if you agree with that, is sharing your personal story and like, how is my brand different than any other wellness brand that's out there, that there are thousands and millions of them, right? What makes my brand stand out from the one that's next door? Like, what is different about my business that will make somebody say, I want to work with Maria versus with the personal trainer or Pilates studio that's next door? So let's talk about branding in the context of like being true to yourself and sharing your story, because what I have also seen is that sometimes people are afraid to share their story because they might think that it's something they're ashamed of, or it makes them feel guilty, or they're embarrassed, or whatever it is. And it's like, wow, if you just share your story, do you know how many people you're going to empower, because you're going to tell them it's okay to share that story, right?
Absolutely. And this is an important question because we're living in an era where we pull up our phones and we are being inundated with content 24/7. And so the burden falls on us to be able to stand up and stack out from our crowd. And to your point about sharing your story, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, because if you start talking about yourself, you talk about your company, you talk about whatever you're doing, if you start to appear too perfect or too polished or too manufactured, then you're not going to connect with as many people. If I go on, I created my best performing LinkedIn post was not a sales pitch. It wasn't even a video. My best performing sales pitch was a short story about the first discovery call I ever had with a client. I talked about how my hand was shaking and that I could feel my throat closing up because I was so freaked out and so scared about what I was doing. And starting the call with, I didn't really know what to say because I had never had one before. By sharing experiences like that, you allow other people to see you as human and to say, hey, I deal with that every single day, or hey, this is important. And when you've got, so take 100 people who are trainers in Pilates or mindfulness or videographers or photographers or graphic designers, take 100 people. Yeah, there's 100 people on your block that do Pilates. But when you share your story and you share about how you do things differently and you craft an offer that someone will look at and they would feel stupid to not say yes to, then you are standing out. And even if somebody down the street has the exact same offer as you, the way that you say it and the way that you present it and the exact words that you use are going to be attractive to a certain audience segment. Even if it's the same offer, if it's the same service, there are people who are going to be attracted to you because of the value and the background and the lens that you bring.
Yeah. And, you know, something as you started speaking made me think, I do a lot of, I don't know if you have seen live videos. I hop in on LinkedIn usually after my run. So I'm like on a bun. I usually don't have makeup. I'm usually sweaty. And I talk for like 1 minute on some kind of mindset topic. And I actually had somebody reach out to me and said something like, I don't think you look very professional when you're like in your running clothes. And first I was like, ooh. And then I was like, wait a second. I was like, oh, first of all, the name of my company is Rebellious. Okay. 2, what I do is I encourage people to move and do things, right? Like, how can you squeeze your steps while you're maybe taking a conference call, right? So it's interesting how people try to box you, right? And it's about giving permission to be like, no, this is the way I do it. And my job is not a desk job where I sit in a suit and conference calls all day long, right? My job is usually with sweaty bodies that are like, I'm on my knees, I'm squatting, I'm lifting. Like, that's the type of job that I do. But this is who I am, and this is how I empower people's bodies and minds. And there's, I think, nothing wrong with me being in my authentic uniform and saying, come on, people, let's do what I'm doing, and let's throw in some mindset in there, right?
You're
But
absolutely right. Yeah. And you're in the fitness industry. Why wouldn't it be okay for you to take a video of you after a run? Now, if you were a financial advisor, yeah, that would be a little bit odd, but I don't know. Maybe that's different. That might actually be interesting.
you know what? That might be a way for you to stand out from the crowd of all the financial advisors who sit suited up and talk. I mean, that's you. And maybe that attracts somebody to you because you stand out and you're different and you're goofy. And I think that
Yeah.
goes back to our personalities. Sometimes I don't use proper language. Sometimes I use bad words. But you know what? I'm like, that's rebellious me. And you don't have to like me, but you
You
might
don't,
love me, right?
right.
But
You
that's
don't.
part of my branding. And I don't know, I think it's so important to show your personality and, like you said, your tonality, and to have that be captured authentically, not maybe on a perfect video. Maybe the light is not bright, or perfect, and maybe I have a little bit of smart makeup or whatever it is, but it's real.
It's the caught in the wild approach that you were talking about, right on the heels of that really awesome run that you had, and you feel super inspired and super motivated. You pick up your phone and talk to one person, talk to your prospect, talk to your clients. Think about how that's going to influence your tonality and the way that you present conversationally. The more that you're able to do that, the more you'll be able to stand out. And you gave me an idea with the financial advisor who's also the runner. That's like, hey, I'm Financial Fred, and I'm here to get you financially fit through exercise. Something interesting. Like, that's interesting. That's different.
Yeah. And doesn't that sound, I mean, to some people be like, this guy's crazy, right? But for some people be like, oh, I love this guy, Fred. He's going to get me financially fit, right? And it's
Yeah.
catchy and it's
Some
different. And
some
it's
people will think you're crazy. Some people may not like your language, but it's going to make the people who do like you even more. And that's what's going to create that engagement and that loyalty that we are all after.
Yeah. Let's talk about branding, and you as a branding expert, Maxwell. What are some tips and tricks? Like, let's go with solopreneurs. That's the space I'm in. And I have a lot of friends, and some of them say, I don't feel comfortable being on camera. I don't want to be the face of my company.
Yeah.
And what do you say to that? I mean, I know you can totally hire other people and have different faces for your company. Do you have any thoughts in terms of what's effective branding, especially for solopreneurs or smaller companies?
Sure. So I need to qualify myself. So I am the person that can elevate an existing brand story through video and through commercials and through short form video content. I have knowledge of branding, and I do have some knowledge of your question. So I will answer it with that caveat.
Yes.
I will say that with solopreneurs, especially those who are service-based, just remember that you are building a relationship. You're not selling $5 candy bars on the street. You don't have to build a relationship. You don't have to be the face of the company to do that. But if you are engaging one-on-one, you need to find a way to make it as easy as possible for people to see your personality and see how you are in different contexts, not just business, not just all business, but in life. The running example, like, give people a glimpse of how you are outside the workplace too. And if you're not comfortable doing video, first of all, you are absolutely not alone. It is totally natural to feel self-conscious, to feel like, oh, I don't know what to talk about, or maybe, how do I hold the phone and all these things? That's totally fine. But I encourage you to think about what your competitors are doing. Your competitors might feel the same way. They might say, oh, I'm not going to do video. If you start to stand out in your category as the one who is doing video, even if they're selfie videos, doing short pieces of content, something that will help you is do something that is just out of your comfort zone. So like, say, for example, if taking a video of yourself is just the ultimate fear, if that is just cripplingly painful to you, do something that cuts that in half. Maybe you take a picture of yourself and then you share a quote, or you share a blog, or maybe take an audio recording of you, something that you're talking about, and put it in an Instagram reel with a couple of different photos. But do something to work your way up to that so that you can start harnessing the power of video as relevant as it is today to help, especially a service-based entrepreneur.
How important do you think is video today, Maxwell, in the world of social media that we live in, and businesses marketing online?
It's mission critical. If you're not using it, you're behind.
Yeah.
That's going to sting, but to some people, but I mean, it's the truth. If you're not using it, then you are missing a very, very strong opportunity to build a relationship with a prospect before you physically meet them.
Mm-hmm.
Think about video as your digital salesperson. When somebody goes to your website, you've got 100 people that go to your website and they see a video of you, or they see a video that represents your brand, or they see a video of a client success story, then that's doing the marketing and selling for you without you even having to be there. Would you rather have 100 people watch a video and they all book a call with you, or going out and having to meet 100 people, so however many hours that takes, and then try to find the right person and then book a call? Like, that's the point I'm getting at here. It's your digital marketing and sales rep for when you're not around.
Yeah. Do you have any effective tips for us if we want to make selfies? Any cool tips?
Yeah. So definitely lean into vertical video. That's when a lot of us, we think about taking video, we take it sideways. If we shoot vertically and we upload to places like Instagram Reels or even TikTok, what happens is when you share, so here's an example. Yesterday, I shared a video that is the #1 secret that video producers don't tell you. Put that in an Instagram Reel. Not only are my followers going to see that, but Instagram is going to serve that to people out in the wild as they're scrolling, as they're consuming content. And the algorithm will eventually put your video in front of people who are interested in what you have to say. And it's a great way to get new followers, to get get more engagement, get more comments, is by leaning in. And consider this too. A lot of people, like with regular posts, like on Facebook or LinkedIn, they are served up. They might get outside your network. A lot of people have to pay for advertising to get the kind of reach that an Instagram Reel can get or a TikTok can get. So you get just the right message that captures attention in a short amount of time, make it interesting, and it gets out there and it takes off. That's effectively free advertising.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, you guys, remember, and I have to show you my little thingy. This thing is a game changer. It doesn't make the hand shake.
Yes, absolutely.
My young daughter introduced me to that. All right, Max, so let's see. Do you have any favorite quote, piece of advice that you would like to share?
Oh, man. How much time do you have? How much time do we have?
Narrow it down to a couple of minutes.
Oprah Winfrey said that when you're thinking and you're imagining your life, create the highest, best, most amazing version and dream of your life imaginable, because you eventually become what you believe.
Yeah. And how many times do we short sell ourselves?
Well, we naturally do that
Yeah.
as humans. And I'm sure you can speak to that too, as someone in the mindfulness space. We've got a lot of us are masquerading as adults, but mentally we have the beliefs of our 8-year-old selves when we got bullied. We've got the 12-year-old selves when a loud voice in our life told us that we couldn't do something or that we shouldn't do something. And the more that people realize that we can write our own stories and that we have the ability to rewrite our history, the more empowered we will feel and the more likely we will be to take that leap into creating that video or starting that business or whatever is we are telling ourselves that we can't do. That's ultimately what's going to get us past that.
Yeah. It's, last night in Mindset, we spoke about the topic of, what did they call it? Contagiously you. And it was basically the more authentic you are, the more true to yourself you are, the more that energy spreads to those around you. And even if they don't understand, they start becoming curious. Like, how is she doing things? I don't understand why she's doing things, but they do see your life changing. So your energy starts spreading around. And we always do a journaling prompt. And the journaling prompt is, what are the things that you want, that you don't allow yourself to have? And one of the answers came around money, where I can't do the things that I want because financially I can't afford them, right? And that's also a story that we have. Well, instead of thinking I can't do that, how can we shift the story to, I'm going to do that. What can I do and push myself outside of the comfort zone to bring the funds to make this happen, right? Versus settling with, well, that's just not going to happen because I don't have the funds. But it's that shift of mindset that you said too. I can't. So I can do anything that I want to, right? I can dream of that life and I can make it happen with small steps and consistent action.
Starts with that thought, but you may have to follow it up with action, follow that up with behavior, follow that up with speech. You'll eventually manifest it. Absolutely.
Consistency.
Yes. My grandmother well, she still plays a huge role in my life, but especially as a kid, she raised me with the mindset that I should always think positively because I will attract what I think about. And I see it over and over again. I would not be where I am today without having that mindset. And to your point about journaling is extremely powerful because it's a form of expression. It's a form of downloading all of the brain junk that we've got floating around up here. And one of my favorite things to do is if I have a moment of anxiety or insecurity during my day or something that stresses me out, I'll grab my journal. I'll let my mind just go wild. I'll write down whatever I want to write down. And then I will respond to that as my own biggest advocate. What would my best friend say in response? Well, he would say, or she would say, Maxwell, you've got it going on. Like, this was a moment that happened, but you still held through and you did this and you did X, Y, Z. And I find that that's a really good strategy for not only expressing what the human brain, our monkey brains are dealing with, but responding to them and reframing them in a more positive and more helpful light.
I frequently say, would you ever speak to your best friend the same way you speak to yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And it's frequently like, oh, no. So that's a point of awareness, because like you said, what we put out is what comes back.
There's nothing wrong with being self-aware, but as long as we don't escalate that to self-consciousness, because being self-aware is, okay, I noticed that somebody got uncomfortable when I said XYZ, or I talked about XYZ. Maybe this isn't the most appropriate place to talk about. That's being self-aware. But being self-conscious is when you say, oh my God, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think I'm nuts. I did X, Y, Z, da, 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 which 9 times out of 10, none of that's true.
We get into our head. That's where we need that journal to dump all the paper. Kind of goes back to that.
Yes, definitely.
Maxwell, what is your definition of rebellious?
A rebel is somebody who stands up for what they believe in, even if there are societal prescriptions or if there are childhood beliefs or parental or family beliefs that do not serve them, that do not support what they are wanting to do or what they stand for. And a rebel is somebody who is not afraid to take ownership of their life and go get what they want.
I like that. Maxwell, tell people where can they find you if they need your support, if they have questions for you. We should have mentioned that you work with nonprofits. That's a niche that you target and that you service, which I think is great, because I think especially nonprofits, I would say most entrepreneurial business are birthed out of passion. Right. And there's definitely a story in there. And most people who work with nonprofits are passionate about the cause. So it's super important to capture that passion on videos.
Sure. I do love working with passionate people because it makes the whole video project just exciting and that much more powerful. I do work with businesses, large and small. I do work with nonprofits on the fundraising side and fundraising films, I should say. And also I do work with schools as well, universities, but ultimately the ideal client for me is somebody who has a wonderful story to tell, has a powerful story to tell. They recognize the power of video and they need a way to get their story out there so that they can compel an audience. And I would absolutely, even for folks who don't need video, I always love to connect and have conversations. I am on LinkedIn, Maxwell Bentley. You can also find me on Instagram, Maxwell Z Bentley, Z is in Zulu. And my website is weonlyfilmeveryone.com.
Great. Maxwell, thank you for sharing your wonderful energy with us. I get so excited when you can feel the energy on the screen, and I definitely feel that with you. So thanks for the great talk and episode. And if you guys have any questions, you can ask them below. You can definitely hit up Maxwell, ask and see if he can support you. And meanwhile, we thank you for tuning in, and remember to make it a rebellious one. See you next time. Thanks for checking in. Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share with your